is a Fox News special report.
Breaking news now from the Fox News World headquarters in New York. I'm Harris Faulkner, and I'm updating you on a situation that we've been following now for hours. I saw you about an hour ago, and now I want to bring you up to speed on what's happening now. Following that terrorist attack in France this week, Paris is under siege again. There are two hostage situations unfolding at the same time. Let's go to this one. This is northern France. One of these situations has just broken wide open, and we are waiting to hear exactly what has happened after sustained gunfire, explosions. We're mostly listening to this unfold because we really can't see much, as you can see outside this printing company. And the city is Dimmartin-en-Gaule. That is north of Paris. Two terror suspects said to be surrounded by French police, and there their pictures are up on the screen. If they look familiar, there's a reason why. Today they are saying they want to die as martyrs. It's been confirmed that these are the same two brothers who police say attacked a French newspaper earlier this week. People were slaughtered inside those newspaper offices, including the editor and the lead cartoonist. They left that scene. They had a getaway car. Then they hijacked another car. They took out a police officer, and with cameras all around, and you know, people with their cell phones, surveillance cameras as well in Paris, that was captured on video, and you can watch it. It's all over YouTube. It's everywhere. It has so rocked the world. And now this scene that we've been waiting to see, which one of these hostage situations would they take command of first? How would this play out? We do know that in just the last few minutes, it's gone silent. Can we go back to that live picture? Because we were listening to those explosions and that gunfire, and it went on for several minutes. Now, I can tell you that nearby that printing company, they had just evacuated many of the businesses there, anybody who was even left in that area, because a lot of people had already left, as this thing has been playing out for hours now. But this residential neighborhood here, they had gotten people out of harm's way, and that also business community. It's kind of a hybrid. They were moving people back just minutes ago before we heard that barrage of gunfire. We do have journalists in Paris, and we've been talking with our Greg Palcott. We've got him gathering more information there. But away from this, let's go to that other hostage situation as we wait to learn more about what's happening in northern France now. That's happening at a kosher grocery store. And we know that there was a gunman and his purported girlfriend who burst into that kosher grocery store with guns and killed people there. We do not have a confirmed number, but reports are at least 2 people killed there. They're inside with those hostages at this point. That is the other scene that's playing out inside Paris. So can you imagine the tension that is going on in that city, in that country today? By the way, that grocery store scene, 1,500 police were deployed there, in addition to the police officers they already had at that scene about 45 minutes ago. There are some 90,000 police officers and military personnel that are scouring the country right now. They originally had been looking for those 2 brothers, Saeed and Ahmed Kawachi, who were now said to be inside one of the hostage situations that we just showed you in northern Paris. So that was how we began. And today the situation has now gone into 2 twin hostage situations. And now we're getting Sky News reports of 4 explosions heard in central Paris. Now, I'm going to ask our producers to tell me in my ear or by email now, as we are communicating to each other digitally as well as we cover this breaking news. Would these be 4 explosions that are separate from either of these scenes? Sky News reporting 4 explosions heard in central Paris. Cannot confirm if that would then be a 3rd situation that they're dealing with. But I was setting the scene for you in terms of the tense nature of where these people are. They're already in mourning. We lost 12 people at that newspaper just 2 days ago that the terrorists hit. Now the same 2 men suspected of being those terrorists are inside that printing company. They had at least 1 hostage inside that printing company. and then all of that gunfire and all those explosions. I do want to go to Sky News, because if they're reporting about these 4 explosions heard in central Paris, we need to know if that's a third scene. Let's watch and listen.
We'll keep talking for as long as we can. And Martin, so we've heard 6 explosions.
Yes.
This has happened about 20 minutes or so after the incident to the north of Paris.
Yes, those TV crews were suddenly moved back when the situation in the north of Paris began to develop. Explosions and gunfire heard there, and within about half an hour, we heard 4 very quick, very loud explosions here. We're, 400 yards away from the supermarket, and within about a minute there were 2 more loud explosions. So I think we've counted 6 in all. We're getting a real sense of activity amongst the police here, who've now started to move us and other TV crews even further away from the scene. We're being told to move off the road now. I think they're expecting vehicles, some of those many.
Yeah, we can hear the sirens coming
dozens
now.
of police vehicles in this area are about to come down this road, so we're being asked to move off the road.
Coming this way now, and I don't know, Dave, if you want to turn round they are just starting to come now, as you can see. We have seen huge police activity here over the last several hours, more police vehicles.
All right, I just want to speak to you about the pictures that you're looking at, because that crew that we've been watching with Sky News, as you could hear, they're being moved back now. And as they move them out of harm's way and into new positions, all of the media that have gathered, I want to revisit what we're learning now. As you heard, 6 explosions. This is central Paris, outside that kosher grocery market. And that's really what the big question was as we went live to Sky News, was whether this could possibly even be another scene. It looks like this is one of the original 2 hostage situations. This one at the kosher market location, that grocery store, where one suspect and his reported girlfriend burst in with AK-47s and opened fire indiscriminately. And there are their pictures now. Now, here's a detail you need to know. The man on the right has connections through some sort of terrorist training and group, as the other 2 men that police say are at that printing company and also hit the newspaper earlier this week, killing 12 people at that satirical newspaper in Paris. So there's a connection between the 2 guys on the left of your screen and the one on your right. Don't know what role this woman plays in all of this in terms of that organized training. But it has been reported today, and really all week long as this has been breaking, that this had the markings of a very sophisticated military-style, highly trained group of individuals. That they had pulled off something that was very sophisticated here. Perhaps what they call in the CIA a command and control situation, where it would have been ordered from afar. Now, we can't confirm that, but those were the markings as they look at this and investigate it. And what does that mean? Well, which organization would that be? We do know that Al-Qaeda very early on, from online chatter that our own U.S. intelligence officials have been supporting his situation with, have been looking at. And we do know from those communications online that it would seem that it would be some connection to the Al-Qaeda group in Yemen. And we know that they were screaming in French as they were killing people at that newspaper 2 days ago, "We are Al-Qaeda." That's what some of the witnesses said. Away from all of this, though, is still the hunt. Could these guys have anybody else? It's still the hunt for that throughout the country of France. And I mentioned some 90,000 strong in terms of police officers and military officers are looking to secure communities all across that country. That is a huge task. And they are in mourning about the people that they have lost as they fight for the ones that are behind the scenes in hostage situations. But breaking right now, back to that situation in northern France, that printing building where explosions and gunfire erupted and now silence. And we are waiting to hear, did they go in? Did they get these guys? Were they able to secure the 1 or more hostages that were inside that printing company? They had evacuated the nearby areas from that company to pull people back. And now they are doing some of that same thing with the sound of explosions in central Paris outside that kosher market. So you've got 2 scenes that have erupted just in the last few minutes. with suspected terrorists at the heart of all of it. Radical Islamists, as they have said today, that they are wanting to die as martyrs. Let's watch and listen as Sky News has pulled into a new location now. Watch.
Terrorist police on the printers' offices where the two Kouachi brothers were holed up and had been since early this morning, where they'd taken a hostage as well. We don't know the outcome. There's been no official confirmation of that, but certainly we're hearing from newswires here that they are reporting that Said and Sharif Kouachi, the brothers deemed responsible for the bloodbath at the Charlie Hebdo satirical magazine offices on Wednesday morning, have been killed as that crisis was brought to a head a few minutes ago.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. We are just hearing that several hostages have been freed here after hearing several loud explosions within the last few minutes. So we're hearing that one woman has been seen leaving the building, Martin, but it's thought several hostages freed, according to the AFP news agency.
We know that at least one woman was among what we thought were up to 6 hostages at the supermarket, because somebody had appeared on Israeli TV talking about her niece and a young child being caught up in this drama. Perhaps that was the woman who's been seen leaving, but there are reports that more than one hostage has been freed. But this all unravelled, 10-15 minutes ago. We heard 4 loud explosions, rapid explosions, followed a gap of perhaps 1 or 2 minutes, and then 2 more loud explosions, which certainly gave us the indication that this hostage situation was coming to an end. It sounded like this was the police storming that supermarket. We don't know yet. We don't know quite how those hostages have been freed.
Okay, but there are reports that several hostages freed here after several loud explosions in quick succession. Hostage freed.
Okay, we're also hearing something similar here. We believe there was only one hostage taken by the Kouachi brothers this morning. There were some reports suggested his name was Michel, and he could have been the owner or the manager of the CTD, the little printing works, in the small business park here in De Martin, and we're hearing now from local reports on the ground that that hostage has been freed and is safe. But at the same time, also reports coming out that the Kouachi brothers have been killed in that exchange of fire that took place when this hostage, this siege situation came to a head in the last half hour. It's quieter now. There's still traffic moving up the N2 motorway part, pretty close to where the scene is, just on the other side of this small town. But for the moment, the almost seemingly endless convoys of emergency vehicles seem to have headed into the scene. It's quieter now at the moment. Let's just take you back to the moment when it all suddenly came to a head unexpectedly, although our reporters on the ground, like Ian Woods, had seen a build-up of balaclava-clad special policemen, counter-terrorism officers moving in gradually into this building park, into this business park. It seemed that they were building their plans and perhaps laying equipment around so they could see what was in the building, maybe even laying some of these charges we then heard go off. And then, all of a sudden, gunfire explosions. Here's how it happened.
Give me on the lip mic. Can you get me the lip mic set up?
So those are the extraordinary scenes here in De Martin, about 30 miles northeast of the centre of Paris, where the police finally launched an assault a short time ago to end the siege here, the hostage situation. We're hearing that the one hostage held at the local printing works there had been released and is free and safe, but the two gunmen held responsible for the shooting at Charlie Hebdo on Wednesday morning, the killing of 12 people there, those two, the Saeed and Sharif Kouachi, have been killed in that police assault. So from here to the other hostage drama in the centre of Paris, over to you, Kay.
Thank you very much indeed, Jeremy. Yes, we are hearing that 2 police officers have been injured during the ending of this siege to the east of Paris. Just before the situation developed where you are, we were urgently moved back by the police. We were monitoring on our satellite truck what was happening where you are. Then we heard the explosions. Up to 6. It could be that they were reverberating, the noise reverberating around these buildings, but up to 6 explosions were heard, and we are being told that several of the hostages, if not all the hostages, have been released. Let's bring in my colleague, Joey Jones, who is at the other side of this police cordon. And you've seen many ambulances going past you there, Joey.
We are, as you say, at another of the many cordons around the area where this siege was taking place. There is actually quite a large crowd gathered here as well, and when those explosions were heard, there were some shrieks among some in the crowd here in Paris. Just a moment ago, actually, a single ambulance went past. I think there's a hospital just a few hundred yards up the road, actually, off the Place de la Nation. So with luck, they will be close at hand. But clearly, I think one of the things that people were reflecting on is that at least here, and we are a long way back, the police have kept everyone a long way away, we didn't hear any gunfire. The only thing we heard were those explosions, 5 or 6 explosions, as you say, which suggested that this was perhaps the police taking matters into their own hands. And if it proves to be the case that those reports hostages have been freed, one would hope unharmed, are accurate, then, well, I think everyone is crossing their fingers that that is indeed the case, because there's been precious little good news of late, whether it be here in Paris or generally across France just recently.
Okay, some emergency services coming by us as we're standing at one of the other cordons. Can't tell from this distance, so we'll just let them come by and we'll see what sort of vehicles they are.
If you are just tuning in to your local Fox broadcast station and you're seeing this, I want to catch you up on what's happening. I'm Harris Faulkner at Fox News headquarters in New York. This situation was pretty much a dueling, if you will, a double hostage situation across Paris, France today. And in just the last 20 minutes or so, both of those scenes have erupted in gunfire and explosions. And some good news to report that we are working to confirm as well across both situations, but we know in at least one of them, the standoff has ended. The 2 suspected terrorists, the brothers, the Kouachi brothers, who police say pulled off a horrific massacre at a newspaper earlier this week, were thought to be at a printing company this morning and had possibly taken who we now know was perhaps the owner of that printing company hostage. And there those brothers are, the Kouachi brothers. That printing company, for the most part, erupted into explosions that went on for several minutes, sustained gunfire a short period of time ago. We now are learning via Sky News and our own reporting with our journalists on the ground that that hostage has been freed. The hostage freed, the brothers possibly killed in this. Now the other situation, that kosher grocery store market, Central Paris, where they had just dispatched in the last hour 1,500 police officers to a scene where a gunman and a woman, also with an AK-47, we think she's his girlfriend, and there's the picture of the 2 of them, burst into this kosher grocery store market, indiscriminately firing away. They killed people. We're still trying to confirm. We believe at least 2. But moments ago, a woman left that scene. And then reports of several other hostages coming out of that grocery store market. And now 6 explosions in Central Paris near that location, near and around that location. And of course, the reporters and the journalists who are telling us this are so far back, it could very well have been inside that building. We did not see the smoke that we saw with the other printing company, so it's entirely impossible to exactly know, but we know that there was gunfire, and we know that there are people reportedly coming out. As these scenes continue to unfold, we're learning that there are many survivors in this, and that is a blessing. Let's watch and listen to Sky News now as they are on the air in Europe.
The suggestion is that the one hostage who was held at the printing works since early this morning was freed and came out safe and well after the police operation, but the two suspects believed to have been behind the bloodbath at Charlie Hebdo magazine offices earlier today on Wednesday morning, in which 12 people were killed. It's believed that both the Kouachi brothers have been killed, but the hostage has been brought out safe and well. Let's bring in Robert Nisbet, my correspondent colleague who's been watching over the business park where all this unfolded. Tell us more, Robert.
Well, Jeremy, we are at the other side of the industrial park, and now you're looking at the 3 military helicopters that have been here all throughout the day since the suspects went into the industrial unit. They appear to be about to be taking off. We've just seen one of the gendarmerie helicopters leave. Just before that, another helicopter, we understand, and if I can give you some more colour from what has happened over the last few minutes, one of those helicopters actually landed on the roof of the industrial unit while that operation was taking place. We were down by the gymnasium to watch the schools being evacuated, and we heard several loud bangs. We believe that they were flashbang grenades, so flashing of lights, then followed by a loud bang to disorientate that were thrown in, and then media reports that you were suggesting there from AFP that the gunman then came out fighting. Throughout the day, we believe that there have been people trapped inside some of those other industrial units that are on the business park. We saw some of them earlier on coming out, maybe hoping to get away, but being told not. And now we're going to go back to Quai Burly over in Paris at the scene of the other former siege.
Indeed, so we're hearing here that the hostage taker, according to the Reuters news agency, or at least one of the hostage takers, we believe the male, has been killed by the police. We are being told that he is dead, assuming at this stage that he has been shot dead by the police. He had links with the other two hostage takers, the Kouachi brothers, who we heard there from Jeremy had come out shooting at police. They are dead, and we are being told now that the hostage taker here, who had held up to 6 people hostage for several hours in a kosher bakery here to the east of Paris, he is now also shot dead. Martin, we heard 5 to 6 explosions around about 20 minutes or so ago.
Yes, 4 happened very quickly, one after the other, which may have been distraction grenades. It's a standard form of entry in this kind of situation. So the grenades are fired in to distract the suspects. There were 2 explosions shortly after that, but they were very much together, which might have been the police blowing off a door or blowing a hole in the wall of the restaurant to gain entry. But none of this, I think, would have been done without the authorities having a pretty good idea where exactly in the supermarket the suspects and the hostages were. But
so as we are watching the story unfold in Paris, France today, we've been watching Sky News. We want to go now to one of our journalists on the ground, Amy Kellogg, who is in eastern Paris. And Amy, what we were just listening to was one of the local reporters in talking about the connection between the hostage takers in one location and those in the other. What can you tell us?
Well, it was so interesting because Ahmadi Koulibaly, the hostage taker at the kosher grocery store, had said that he wanted the 2 Kouachi brothers released. He said that if police attacked them, assaulted them, went in to end that other hostage situation, then he would kill the hostages at the kosher grocery store. So clearly these 2 situations have come to an end at around the same time, but we don't know all of the details in between the 2. Now, what we do know is that they were all the 3 different hostage takers. the two that were outside Paris and the one here were all part of a gang or a cell here in the eastern part of Paris for many years, with sort of criminal backgrounds early on, drug dealing, some womanizing reportedly, and petty violence. Ahmedi Coulibaly, the man who apparently now has been shot dead, but who was holding hostages at the kosher grocery store, had been sentenced to prison for quite an extensive term, but only served 1 year of it. Now, that is according to some news reports. He was released and apparently radicalized to an extent while he was in prison. So the trajectory among all of these guys seems to have been petty criminality that turned to hardcore Islamism. Now, their connections in terms of foreign fighters and foreign organizations is still a bit murky. The Kouachi brothers had connections to Yemen, we understand, and also to Iraq some years ago. Coulibaly, we're not altogether certain, but we do know that they were part of a band here in eastern Paris. What we don't know is whether or not the different attacks that they've carried out over the past few days, because of course Ahmedi Coulibaly of the kosher grocery store is believed to have also killed a female police officer here in Paris yesterday. So we don't know to what extent there was coordination, to what extent one followed the other, was a reaction to the other, to what extent there were mentors or people guiding them overseas. That we simply don't know. We know the Kouachi brothers spoke of being linked with al-Qaeda in Yemen, and one of the brothers spent some time in Yemen. But I think now that the dust will settle, since these two hostage situations have ended and gunmen on the loose in Paris have been apprehended, more details will be forthcoming. The accomplice of Coulibaly, a woman named Hayat Boumediene, it's not clear what her status is. If she is alive, she certainly will be able to provide some information, theoretically. And also, an in-law of the Kouachi brothers has been in police custody, an 18-year-old named Hamdi Murad, who was originally thought by police to have been the driver on the day of the massacre at Charlie Hebdo. He was wanted by police. He turned himself in. Now it's not clear whether he had any part in all of this or not, but he is said to be a close relation of the Kouachi brothers. Therefore, he would have information about their connections, about their planning, about who funded them, and more about their ideology and what they sought to achieve here.
Yeah, you know, Amy, as you're talking about this, you're bringing up these other people, and I understand that that young 18-year-old had seen his name mentioned on social media, and that's why he decided to turn himself in. And now you're talking about some of the information that he might be able to give, perhaps even this woman. We don't know anything really about her and how she fits into this. And oh, by the way, I know that we don't normally see women at these scenes in terms of being the perpetrators, the killers, the savages, the radical Islamists. But when you look at the war that's being waged with the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, women are very much a part of the fabric of how they are fighting that. Over there with the terrorists. A quick question for you, and it has to do with, I know that these two scenes have broken apart, and I know originally the hunt was on for two of the men who died today, who were at that other scene, the original massacre at that satirical newspaper, Charlie Hebdo, earlier this week. But you still have 90,000 plus police officers, military personnel dispatched around the country, keeping an eye out for anything else that might be coming. What is the mood of the people right now that you've been able to talk to?
Well, you know, it has been the fear of people clearly in the United States, but also in European cities, that the fight will come right here, and it did in Paris. Paris has been under siege. Paris has been at war, if you will, for the last couple of days. I mean, there's the sense that all of the faraway troubles really did kind of explode here in this very cosmopolitan, very European city. So, yeah, that was a real shock for people. People here have been calling it their 9/11. Of course, some say there's no comparison. The numbers are so different. You can't compare what happened here to the attacks of 9/11. But in the sense that it was a horrific tragedy, a true shock. And Charlie Hebdo, you have to understand, really is quintessentially French. It's a long tradition of satire, of poking fun at different religions, at political leaders, at everyone. Everyone is fair game. And that has been a very long French tradition of being critical, of being witty, of being satirical. So this really struck at the fiber of French society: freedom of speech, freedom to mock, freedom to ridicule, freedom to publish whatever you want. So that has been a huge shock for people. I think to some extent they felt something was coming. There have been so many threats. There's been concern about terrorism. 1,000 French nationals have gone over to fight either in Iraq or Syria, according to police. Many of them come back, many of them women going over to either potentially fight or just be jihadi brides. So, yeah, there was fear, there was anticipation something like this could have happened. It has happened. The Jewish community is being advised to be under a certain lockdown tonight, with rabbis in Paris saying, look, stay home. Don't even attempt to go to synagogue. Just be careful and be safe. Otherwise, though, I will say, much like New York and much like London, people are getting on with their lives. There are people out and about tonight. I think that the spirit is that we won't be cowed. Charlie Hebdo is going to be published next week, 1 million editions, with staff there saying, look, we are not going to be cowed by the, quote, stupidity. They are referring to this as stupidity. So they are trying to play down what has been absolutely a horrific tragedy for people here, and particularly those most closely involved in that newspaper. But yes, the mood grim, the mood sad, but the mood, I think it's fair to say, Harris, defiant.
I guess also what I was alluding to is that are people being told that this is over at this point? I mean, these were the men that they were looking for. Well, but we didn't know that there would be these other people as well, and they popped up on the scene today.
Yeah, no, we didn't know. I mean, yesterday when the policewoman was killed, the original reports or the original information from law enforcement was that these are probably not connected attacks, shootings. This shooting of the police officer yesterday was not connected to Charlie Hebdo on Wednesday. Now it's clear that it was connected, and there are no indications that there is anyone else on the loose. But we do know, we've seen a series from Australia to Canada of lone wolf attacks that have happened over the past months. So certainly there has to be the concern that there are people potentially in the mood to do a copycat sort of action. But of course there could be other things in the works, and there are going to be meetings here over the weekend, international law enforcement officials, to talk about how to better go after these to go after this threat. Because of course the other thing is the Kouachi brothers really were on police radar. I mean, one of them, Sharif, had done jail time. He had tried to go fight jihad. He had funneled fighters over there. He'd been involved in cells. He was a radical Islamist. And people are asking, why was he free to roam about? Why was his brother able to get on a plane and go to Yemen? So clearly the surveillance that is taking place is not foolproof and never can be. But there is going to be a huge now focus on how to make that better.
And some of the criticism that has come as we've watched this unfold for the better part of 96 hours now in terms of what originally happened this week and now into what soon will be Saturday morning where you are, has been that they have so many of these people in the community throughout Paris, France, and also in London, where these people may have been on a watch list or may have been on a no-fly list, but they just simply don't have the people to keep up with them. And that's something that we struggle sometimes with even in this country of the United States. I mean, it's a tough thing. But they knew that at least one of these guys had been funneling jihadists to the fight all the way across the world in Iraq and Syria. So, I mean, and their ties to Yemen as well. So that there has been some criticism about how these guys are really being kept up with, and should some maybe take precedence over the other. Although I've read reports, Amy, that those lists can change by the day. Someone might pop as more active than the other, and then you turn your focus to that one and away from this one, and that one gives the other guy a chance to pop up and do something like what we've seen. So it is a tough fight that we are in. The way we live our lives at the heart of it, and certainly, radical Islamists, as these guys said that they were willing to die today, we saw a shift. They left that newspaper and continued to kill after they left and got away. Today, a different scene. They were willing to die, and from what I'm seeing from security forces now inside Paris, they did die today, and at the hands of French authorities. Amy Kellogg reporting live for us from eastern France. We appreciate that. Eastern Paris, I should say. Now, I know that we've also been watching what's happening on Sky News. Do we have that? Can we dip into that? Let's watch and listen, because what they're able to tell us at this point is right there from the scene in central Paris outside that kosher grocery store, where up to 6 hostages have gone free. And at least one of the hostage takers, the man, has been killed today. Let's watch and listen.
To shoot and kill the hostages here. The police were obviously not going to have any truck with that. As a result, they moved us back very quickly here at the scene in the east of Paris, and then we saw the situation developing where you are. Very shortly after that, we heard a series of explosions here, which ended this siege in eastern Paris this evening.
It seems that the 2 assaults by the police really happened within a few minutes of each other. Firstly, the one here, and I think we have some new video from a different angle of when the gunfire started as the police made their intervention here, and then we heard the explosions that Ian Woods was describing for you. And it was really just a few minutes after that, quite literally, that we heard of similar gunfire and explosions coming from the kosher deli where Kay is in Paris, 25 miles down the road from here. Ian Woods, who watched this dramatic scene unfold, joins me now. And Ian, both you and our Sky News teams in Paris were talking about the problems with phone communications going down, and clearly the authorities, before they could launch these assaults, were likely to have shut down the phone network so that these 2 terror groups couldn't talk to each other.
That could well be the case. I have to say, I mean, we were, because of our vantage point being outside the town and looking over the very powerful camera lens, I don't think we here in this particular spot were affected by that. I certainly didn't notice it, but then we were commentating on some fairly dramatic events at the time, so not monitoring our phone signal and our phone coverage. But yeah, I mean, it all seemed to be very coordinated, because within the space of about 10-15 minutes, we had a large group of people leaving the area, coming up this road behind me, which had been completely empty all day. The police had not been allowing any traffic there. Dozens of vehicles left, all people who work in the vicinity. There was an appearance almost immediately then by more vehicles containing armed police wearing balaclavas. And then I heard my colleague Kay Burley getting sort of moved back from the situation in Paris. So they were clearly preparing to storm the shop in Paris, and almost at the same time as that happened, within the space of about a minute, that's when we heard the first gunshots here in Dammartin. The first burst of gunfire lasted about 15 seconds, about 30 seconds, I beg your pardon, and then there was a pause of about 15 seconds for some reason, and then for the next 90 seconds we then had sustained periods of gunfire and those 4 explosions as the Kouachi brothers were killed in that raid to put an end to the siege, and the hostage that they had taken earlier this morning was able to go free.
Thanks, Ian. Well, let's take you back to Kay, where I think the one loose end, the one unanswered question is what's happened to the 4th gun person, and that is Hayat Boumediene, believed to be the girlfriend of Amedy Coulibaly, the gunman now who was believed to be killed at the deli. So we still don't know quite well what her whereabouts are, do we, Kay?
No, we don't. But what we do know, Jeremy, is that there have been reports that police actually hacked into the CCTV at this kosher store and then in some way managed to communicate with the hostages inside before storming the building. Sam Kiley has more on that for us. Sam, what can you tell us?
Well, the French media, France 2 especially, have very good contacts with the intelligence and counter-terrorism police in France, and they are saying that the police were able to keep very good surveillance of what was going on inside this kosher deli because they were able to hack into the shop's own CCTV operations. They were also able to secretly make contact with a hostage inside there using a mobile phone signal. Now, what is intriguing is that, of course, it was important to keep the hostage taker there from understanding that his friends were being attacked because there was about a 15-minute gap between the two assaults, possibly because of the presence of the media in Paris. And so it was right up until the last minute. It was just at the last minute, rather, that they shut down all communications into and out of that shop and went in on the assault. And, of course, it could have provided them the last-minute intelligence they needed.
Yeah, and we certainly heard from where we were, Sam, our communications here were quickly scrambled. We had no phone communication whatsoever. That was shortly after we'd heard the first explosion. So it was very much an ongoing incident there. We're not quite sure when this gunman was shot dead, or indeed when, in what order the hostages were released.
No, it's that will start to emerge as people start breaking down how the operation went. Right now, they'll just be trying to get the hostages to a place of safety and start counselling them to get them over the very dramatic trauma that they've endured. But I think above all, what has been critical here,
as we are watching now Sky News, our sister network in Europe, particularly London, I should say, we have just seen some details, given that we did not know about these twin hostage situations that have erupted in some good news today about hostages being let go in central Paris and at a second location in northern Paris. To reset the scene here, suspected terrorists who had hit a satirical newspaper in Paris on Wednesday were then at a location this morning, had a hostage. We believe it was the owner of a printing company. They feared imminent death for that person. We sat on that scene, though, for several hours with those two brothers suspected of killing 12 people, including a police officer, on Wednesday. And then today, a declaration that they were willing to die in their cause and become martyrs. They're the brothers now, the Kouachi brothers. And so the hunt was on for them already. That printing company became the first hostage scene that we saw, and then a second one with a man who, it turns out, had a connection with them in terms of how they were trained, a cell there in Paris where they were trained to kill, to be the savages that they were. Radicalized Islamists. And they had a connection today. One set of terrorists asking for the release of the other set of terrorists at a different location. It was unreal as it unfolded, and now we know that the hostage at the printing company has been let go, has been freed. The hostage takers in that are dead, and at the second location, this is the market that you're looking at right now, that kosher bakery. At least six people came out, first a woman and then several others came out, hostages, free. The hostage taker there, at least one of them, perhaps both, because there was a man and a woman who burst in the scene, shooting indiscriminately with AK-47s at this market. They shot the man and were able to free the hostages. All right, I want to go to Greg Palcott. A couple of things are happening as we go there with our journalists on the ground. The Jewish community is being told tonight in Paris, as we understand, to be on somewhat of a lockdown, Greg. They want people to be secured because while they feel that this particular cell is over, they're still watching social sites. They're still watching to see if there will be any sort of reverberation, any sort of copycats, that sort of thing. Bring us what you know.
Absolutely, Harris. The area near the Marais district of Paris, it is a Jewish cultural and commercial area. All of the shops and businesses there were basically ordered by the French government to close today. There have been terror attacks in the past there, and the fear was that in the wake of the kosher supermarket hostage taking, that other Jewish targets might be in the sights of other Islamists, other jihadi types, other suspected terrorists or real terrorists. And so, even though there was some grudging admission to the orders, that whole area, which is a busy area at this time with people coming in to buy things for Friday, for the upcoming Sabbath, is closed down. There has to be some satisfaction, however, that it appears that the hostage taking at the kosher supermarket in the eastern part of Paris is resolved. We do have confirmation from multiple sources that the hostage taker there, the man, as you noted, responsible, it is believed, for the killing yesterday of a policewoman, has been killed. And as you've been noting, the hostages have been brought out. We do have reports indicating that some might be injured. It is a close situation that the police were dealing with there, so problems and not a picture-perfect operation might be expected. We also do have a report, Harris, that there were 3 police officers injured in that operation as well. But that went down, as you have been recounting, at just about the very same time that the conclusion of the other hostage situation was coming to a close as well, to the northeast of Paris, 25 miles away. And when the 2 individuals, the 2 main suspects in the Charlie Hebdo newspaper brutal, deadly shooting, came out firing. That is the account of people on the ground, that when the police started to storm in, they stormed out. And then they met their death, and they, in fact, had said that they would become martyrs for the cause. And they basically fulfilled their promise or their threat to the authorities. But the remarkable thing about that situation is the one hostage that they were holding emerged unharmed. The latest word we're getting, Harris, is that that person, and it's believed it could have been the owner of the business, was holed up in an office to the side and was actually feeding information to the police. So he was a quasi-hostage, but maybe not a true hostage in the truest sense of the word, Harris.
Well, you got to believe that anybody in the hands of someone who's already done so much damage and taken so much life is in danger. I mean, they may have been composed and able to communicate, but my goodness, you've given us some interesting information. So Ahmed Koulibaly and the other woman who were at the market, you're telling me now confirmed Koulibaly, and we had thought that he was dead. I had reported we were waiting for the confirmation on that. But it's interesting what you say. He and the 2 others, the Kouachi brothers, and their connection to that one cell, when we were told early on, Greg, that there might not be a connection with all of this, as this has come together, it will be really interesting to find out what led up to this. Was this a command and control situation, which we've heard of, and it's kind of CIA speak, where this was an ordered situation between what happened at the newspaper and what has now subsequently happened at the market and at the printing company? Thankfully today, no more loss of life in terms of people who were taken hostage. But we do want to mention, Greg, that 2 people were killed when they burst into that market today.
That was the initial account. We're still waiting for confirmation on that. That was multiple reports. No, I think we were prior to the dramatic events of the late afternoon here, Paris time. This morning we learned of even a closer look at how this all went down. It turns out that the older brother, the Kouachi brothers, that is Saeed, was the motivating force, according to various police accounts in the French media here today, that he had received training in Yemen, and the Al-Qaeda chapter there was saying that this newspaper should have been taken out.
Greg, I need to cut in on you just 1 second, and I apologize for having to cut you off, but we're just getting this from Sky News. Greg Palcott, I'm going to release you now. Thank you very much. We'll bring you back if the news warrants. At least 4 hostages there at that supermarket. Now, we thought several people had walked out, and we certainly had reports of that. What we did not know is that some of them, and we didn't know the extent of their injuries. We did know some were injured. At least 4 hostages now, according to Sky News, at that kosher supermarket siege in eastern Paris are now being said to be dead. So we know that one woman walked out. Now, Fox News has not confirmed this yet. This is per Sky News. And because there's some conflicting reports on the number of people who would have been held hostage, what we'll do is we'll report this as something that we cannot independently confirm. But Sky News is saying that at least 4 of those hostages at the kosher supermarket were killed as they moved in to end that situation. We do know that the hostage takers, the terrorists who were came out shooting as they were trying to blow apart that scene, that second hostage situation. Please stay tuned to Fox News Channel and this Fox broadcast station for continuing coverage of the story and all the day's breaking news. Anytime online, foxnews.com. I'm Harris Faulkner in New York.
This has been a Fox News Special Report.
Have killed the 2 Paris massacre suspects and freed their hostage and freed hostages held at another Paris location. That information is still coming in. We're going to get to more information.
Qui est-ce qui a avancé? Qui est avancé? En journaliste. Merde, il a décroché le retour là. Ils m'ont enlevé, là j'ai que la bande-annonce en fait. Je peux les rappeler? Là c'est, vous êtes à Boulogne? Ouais, voilà, ouais. Ça veut dire que ça se trouve, il y a trop de gens. Ah oui, ils m'ont zappé? Ouais. Ils t'ont enlevé. Tu connaissais? Est-ce que tu m'entends toujours, toi?